So you have your selvage end here. We are going to fold this across. Now, I'm not gonna fold it in half because I don't need that much space. I'm gonna see how this is gonna fit in perfectly right here. Now this is a straight line, and this nice pink fabric that I gave you has a straight line that you can match it up so that you know that it is folded in half perfectly. Do you see how this selvage lines up perfectly with that line there? Now I'm going to put this down so I'm not wasting any fabric. I'm going close to an edge. This grain needs to match up with this selvage line. So I'm going to fold or measure here. And for me, this here is at 4.5. I'm going to put a pin in it, okay? And if you actually look closely with this straight line, it is really on one of the pink lines, okay? So even if you didn't have a ruler at home, you could just measure it up with one of the lines here, 4.5. And the grain line is pinned. Now, always measure twice, cut once. So 4.5, 4.5, perfect. So now I can pin the rest. Now when you're pinning any of these corners, you always want to pin at an angle right here. So we're pinning angle right there. As you can see, I'm not putting the pins over the cut line because that would be bad. And now I'm going to pin parallel to my cut line, which is wrong if we were sewing, but here we're not sewing, we're just cutting. So now I'm pinning around this curve, and it's roughly every rock and roll distance. So any angles, again, any points in the pattern piece, we're going to go at an angle so it holds that point down. So you're definitely going to get that point correct. Okay. And you never want to pin straight down in a row. If you do, you end up getting a bubble. So you always want to pin, here's a corner, I'm going to pin the other corner, and then go in between. All right. When you have that finished, and it's all prepped, each one of these is going to be one entire leg for your 18-inch doll pajama pants. And if we're going to be, when we move on to do the big kid, like your size pajama pants, all that happens is this pattern piece is cut in half here, and you have the front and the back leg. So other pajama pants, even adult size pajama pants, come in this, where you are cutting out the front and the back, and there's just no side seam. So now you can go cut out the pattern piece. And remember, we cut heel to toe, nice long cuts with our shears. Okay. Nice long cuts. Now pattern pieces, if you were to buy a pattern, they cost roughly, like the pajama pants that some of you requested that I sent with you, they are $20 pattern pant. Now we get it at a discount because we're a school, so we get it at $2, but if you go to Joann's, you're paying a pretty decent price. They are not disposable. Those are meant to be held on. Now this extra fabric, we're gonna keep. We can use for future mini projects, or we can also use, if we mess up, we have enough fabric that you don't have to run back to school. So now the next step is we are going to do marking. So now what you are going to want to do is, there's 2 notches right here, and this is what we want to cut out, because at some point they are going to match up. So you cut those notches out. You have to be careful not to cut too far in, because we're only going to be sewing at 1/4 inch seam. All right. So now we know this is our inside of our legs. This is our center back. This is our center front. All right. So now what we are going to do is we are going to unpin. If this was a human pattern, there would be a lot more, because an American Girl doll is kind of straight on both sides. If it was a human, you would definitely have a back of a pattern and a front, because we're curved. We have a tushy. So now the first step that the directions are going to say is, I always like to put out my pattern pieces so they're mirror image, good sides up. Now we're going to match it right here from this crotch line down. We are going to pin. So I put a pin in here, now I come down here and I put a pin in here. Again, rock and roll apart, so I need one in the middle. And as you can see, my ends are matched up. So they may not willingly go, but I'm gonna force those ends to match up so that the end is correct, okay? Now I'm gonna do this one over here. The crotch seam, pin that all the way down to the hem of the pant. And now in the middle, force it to match up. And now the first step is going to be pinned, and now we can go over to the sewing machine.